I call the Honourable Nick Smith. Order.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make a thoughtful contribution to this important debate and to put a number of very basic facts correct. The very first is the Speaker has just resumed his seat, has said that the financial difficulties in ACC was a manufactured crisis. Let the record be very clear. In the 2007-8 financial year, and I have a copy of the annual report right here, ACC declared a loss of $2.4 billion. That annual report is signed off by Mary Ann Street. Then with exactly the same group of actuaries, exactly the same audit office, in the following financial year, ACC declared a loss of $4.8 billion. Together those two sums, Mr. Speaker, $7.2 billion, adds up to more than all the losses of all the finance companies. And have we seen a single...
Point of order, the Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, the senior opposition whip made a very unparliamentary comment and I'd ask that he withdraw and apologise.
Speaking to the point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, challenging members to tell the truth is something which is used regularly in the House. It is different from saying that they are lying or that they are not telling the truth.
Well, no. It's actually very close to saying someone is untruthful, and I'd ask the member... no, it's not acceptable. Untruthful is not acceptable. I ask the member to desist.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
This is important, and I can see there's quite a lot of discussion going to happen on this. Asking someone to tell the truth is prospective. It is not retrospective. It is not looking back at what they had said. It is looking forward, and inviting them to obey the rules of the House is in fact not a breach of standing orders, and members should not be asked to desist from doing that.
Well, no. Can I just tell members that this has actually happened before, and I referred to the issue of untruthful, and that means given to lying. It means also diverging from the truth, and a generalised charge that a member is untruthful cannot be permitted. But a particular reference on an occasion to which a member has admittedly diverged from the truth in a certain statement is not unparliamentary, and I would refer members to Speaker's Rulings 43/6, Jerry Wall. So I'm just asking members to be careful with their use of interjections across the House, because it can lead to disorder, and that's not what we want. I call it...
Order, Mr. Speaker.
I'll hear the Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of referring to Speaker's Rulings, can I also ask the members perhaps to read Speaker's Ruling 42/3 from Speaker Wilson, who did rule the term "tell the truth" as an unparliamentary term, as it is a phrase that creates disorder in the House.
I call the Honourable Nick Smith.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the member who you have not asked to refrain his statement has alleged that I was not telling the truth. In respect of the figures that I quoted of a $2.4 billion loss at ACC for the 7-8 year and a $4.8 billion loss for the 2008-9 year. Mr. Speaker, I seek leave of the House. I seek leave of the House to table the Auditor General's signed-off accounts showing those two figures are correct.
Well, the member's perfectly entitled to seek leave of the House. Order! The House is a master of its own destiny. Any member in this place is entitled to seek leave of the House to table something. And the members can say no.
Point of order.
Point of order. Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I think you'll be aware that the Speaker, Lockwood Smith, has ruled that documents that have already been tabled in the House and are already available, we cannot seek leave to table those, and that's exactly what Nick Smith was just trying to do.
The document is already available? The document is already available.
Speaker,
Well, no,
I want to speak to Mr Hipkins' point.
Well, I've been in the House a number of years, and I've heard Dr Lockwood-Smith say that if documents are freely available, then they're not to be tabled in the House because it's seen as a waste of parliamentary time.
To that point. Just by way of clarification, Mr Speaker, what Mr Hipkins said was that the document had already been tabled in the House, and that is not accurate insofar as it's tabled on the table. It has been received, and I would suggest that because the document that Dr Smith was referring to is now nearly 5 years old, that in fact it would be in the public interest to seek to table it.
That's a good precedent. It's a really good precedent.
I'm advised that the document has to be publicly available, and it is publicly available. I call the Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Speaker, those same financial accounts show that in the period 2005 to 2008, ACC claim expenditure grew from $2 billion a year to $3 billion a year. That's an extra $1 billion in a period of just 3 years. It was financially reckless, it was not sustainable, and that is why, as the incoming Minister of ACC, significant changes were required. Mr Speaker, there's a very important balance that's required between an ACC between ensuring that claimants that have accidents receive the entitlements for which they should receive, but equally so, there is a very important obligation to ensure that the levies are affordable and that they do not rise at rates that are not sustainable for households and businesses. Mr Speaker, I also want to put on record that one of the first issues I had to deal with in ACC was genuine corruption. A senior property manager within ACC during the time when Mr Peters was a minister, and there is a person, not some made-up claim, a claim that has been lodged, a complaint with the police, and a prosecution. And I say to Mr Mallard, there was corruption, a conviction for corruption in a court of law in New Zealand in respect of the property dealings of ACC that was brought forward by myself as Minister. Mr Speaker, I do find, and over the preceding 3 years, huge improvements have been made in ACC's finances. In the last year for which I was Minister, ACC was able to deliver a substantive surplus, and that has enabled levies for both employers and households that are struggling to be substantially reduced. And Mr Speaker, I do want to put on public record thanks to John Judge, to Jan White, the former Chief Executive, and Ralph Stewart and the team for the very effective job that they have done in correcting the finances and those difficulties that was a very set threat to New Zealand. Mr Speaker, in respects of the issues of which I chose to resign, I would also wish to make some comments. Mr Speaker, it has been alleged in the media and repeatedly by people opposite that I waded into the case of Bronwyn Kuller. Well, actually, the record shows, Mr Peters, that I wrote 4 letters in respect of Bronwyn Kuller. Every one of those letters involved me saying that she was a friend, and that it would be inappropriate for me to interfere in her ACC case. I did make an error in putting on record the fact that I knew Bronwyn prior to her accident and that she was well prior to that date. I regret that. In my view, it created a perception that somehow if a person was a friend of a minister, that they might be treated differently to others. That was never my intent, but I do stand very strongly by the principle that this Parliament and New Zealand must have is that all people must be treated equally, thus my decision to tender my resignation. Mr Speaker, I then want to say that it is somewhat ironic that the opposition are contradictory in their views of Bronwyn Kuller, and so too are the media. When this debate erupted 2 months ago, members opposite said that she was a villain, that she was a taker. Now we're presented the case that somehow Bronwyn is a hero. Mr Speaker, in fact, neither of those things are true. Bronwyn is a sad case of a very capable person who's had an accident and actually well illustrates the dilemma for many New Zealanders involved in ACC as to what is the appropriate time of rehabilitation, Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable